education in China is very important. And could you give us some 3 keywords about your children?
You mean how my approach to parenting? Yeah. I always wanted them to think for themselves. I always wanted them to make their own choices. I would help them. I would let them think about the consequences of their choices. And I'd try to provide guidance. Sometimes I'd even make them do things. But generally, it was very important that they think for themselves. I think there's a challenge that we have, because the education system makes you follow instructions and remember what you're told and give the answers that are told to be the correct answers. And that teaches children to become to adults who follow instructions and don't think for themselves, and sometimes don't even know what they really want. And I think that that's a challenge. That challenge often will get you into the better school. And so you think, oh, I want my son my child to go into that school, so make sure you do that. And that's a challenge. At the same time, if you want the child to know what they want and be creative and think for themselves. So it's a balance, I think, that most parents have to think about. How do you have them think for themselves, that creativity? And for me, I chose to emphasize the independent thinking for themselves. So from a very early age, if they could give me a good argument, they could get what they wanted, but they would have to go through a good argument. And I would always focus on, like what's best for them, but they would have to figure that out. Like, do you not want to study for that test? Think about the consequences of not studying for that test. Your life won't be what it should be, because your education will give you power and freedom. Okay, let's have a conversation about that. Do you want to study for that test? So those types of conversations, I think, help to make them have more of the lives that they want to have. They're different professions. Two are artists of their film. One's a filmmaker, one's a documentarian, one is two are in business, one's a philanthropist. Very different type of people following their own paths. All struggle. We all struggle, but that's been my approach.
Okay, so would you think that the world is changing very fast and the education is still follow the traditional rules? Do you think that there will be a big change in the education part?
I think that there is a big change. And I think that's because technology's very much enhancing the dealing with the learning in an individual way. What I mean now is that while you're interacting with the computer that'll help you learn, it will learn about you. It will learn your strengths and weaknesses, and it'll help to customize for you. It also is making education more fun. For example, gamifying, it's called. In other words, you take it and you make it a game that is education. Very, very powerful as an effect. So that there are new technologies that are changing education in very important ways.
Education part, I mean that the different traditional structure of the education will not change.
Well, I think in many ways it does. For example, the grade structure, that age and grade, I think that's going to change. It's going to be, where are you in your process? And what is your path? So I think in many ways, education is going to change in very important ways.
Okay, very good. Thank you.